The mere process of contemplating who you want to be begins to change your brain. When you marry a clear intention being a thoughtful process with an elevated emotion, which is a heartfelt process, you move into a new state of being. Remind yourself every single day of who you want to be, and you will cause your brain to fire in new sequences, in new patterns, in new combinations. And whenever you make your brain work differently, you are changing your mind. We perceive reality based on how our brain is wired. Your personality creates your personal reality. Your personality is made up of how you act, how you think, and how you feel. If your personal reality is creating your personality, you are a victim. But if your personality is creating your personal reality, then you are a creator. Process of change requires you becoming conscious of your unconscious self. The process of change requires unlearning. It requires breaking the habit of the old self and reinventing a new self. As long as you are thinking equal to your environment, you keep creating the same life. To truly change is to think greater than your environment. To think greater than the circumstances in your life, to think greater than the conditions in the world. The hardest part about change is not making the same choices you made the day before. The moment you decide to no longer think the same way, act the same way, or live by the same emotions, it's going to feel uncomfortable. And the moment you feel uncomfortable, you just stepped into the river of change. The best way to predict your future is to create it not from the known, but from the unknown. When you get uncomfortable in the place of the unknown, that's where the magic happens. Found that there were 4 things that were common among every person who had a spontaneous remission. The first thing was that every person accepted and believed that there was a divine intelligence running the body. The second thing is that they understood that their thoughts actually contributed to their disease. The third thing was that they decided that in order to break their thinking process, they had to reinvent themselves by thinking who they wanted to become. And as they started to think of the possibilities, their brain began to change. The fourth thing was that they spent long moments with themselves thinking about what they wanted to become. They were so involved in what they were thinking about, that they lost track of time and space. Your heart beats 2 gallons of blood every minute. Over 100 gallons of blood every hour. It beats at 10,000 times in one day, 40 million times a year, and over 3 billion times in one lifetime. It pumps consistently without you consciously thinking about it. If you think about it, there is some intelligence that is giving us life, that is keeping our heart beating. It's the same intelligence that is digesting our food, breaking down food into nutrients and taking that food and organizing it to repair the body. All of that is taking place without us being conscious of it. The hormones of stress, in the long term, push the genetic buttons that create disease. When we live by the hormones of stress, and all of the energy goes to these hormonal centers and away from the heart gets starved of energy. As long as we are living by the hormones of stress, we are living as a materialist, because the hormones of stress cause us to believe that the outer world is more real than the inner world. The hormones of stress make us feel separate from possibility of learning, creation and trust. If the hormones of stress are like a narcotic and we could turn on the stress response just by thought alone, then we could get addicted to our thoughts. We use the frontal lobe to decide on action. It regulates behavior. We use it when we are planning, speculating, when we are inventing, when we are looking at possibilities. Most people are so distracted by their external world that they don't use their frontal lobe properly. The moment we accept that the internal world has an effect on the external world, we have to begin to use the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe gives us permission to hold on to a concept, idea, vision, dream, independent of the circumstances that exist in our world, in our body and time. Frontal lobe gives us the privilege to make thought more real than anything. The frontal lobe has connections to all other parts of the brain, and when you ask open-ended questions like what would it be like? How would it have to be? The frontal lobe, like a great symphony leader, looks out at the landscape of the entire brain and begins to select different networks of neurons and seamlessly pieces them together to create a new mind. The quantum field responds not to what we want, it responds to who we are being. You have to feel empowered for your success to show up. You have to feel abundant for your wealth to find you. You have to feel gratitude to create the life that you want. Spend time contemplating who you want to be. The mere process of contemplating who you want to be begins to change your brain. People can get addicted to the adrenaline and the stress hormones, and they start using the problems and conditions in their life to reaffirm their emotional addiction, so they can remember who they think they are. The bad circumstances, the bad relationship, the bad job. All of that is in place because the person needs that to reaffirm their emotional addiction. As long as you are thinking equal to your environment, your personal reality is creating your personality, and there is a dance between your inner world and the experience in the outer world, and that tango is called karma. Every time we have a thought, we make a chemical. If we have good thoughts, we make chemicals that make us feel good. And if we have negative thoughts, we make chemicals that make us feel exactly the way we are thinking. Same thoughts always lead to the same choices. Same choices lead to the same behavior, and the same behaviors lead to same experiences, and the same experiences produce the same emotions, and these emotions drive the very same thoughts. You can change your brain just by thinking differently. Change your brain by thinking differently. Knowledge is power, but knowledge about yourself is self-empowerment. The privilege of being a human being is that we can make a thought seem more real than anything else. Life is about the management of energy. Where you place your attention is where you place your energy. We can mold and shape our brain by paying attention. If we can hold on to an idea, we begin to wire and shape our brain. When we put all our attention on an idea or concept, there is a physical change that happens in the brain. The Brain takes the holographic image that we are holding in our frontal lobe and creates a pattern of connections that associate with that concept, idea. It's true that our brain is shaped and molded by our environment, but what science is beginning to realize is that our brain is shaped and molded by our ability to pay attention. And when we have the ability to pay attention, we have the ability to learn knowledge and wire that knowledge in our brain. Frontal lobe is the CEO of the brain. The rest of the brain is just past programming. The size of the frontal lobe in reference to the other parts of the brain is what separates us from other animals. For human beings, the frontal lobe is almost 40% of the entire brain. For apes and chimpanzees, it is about 15% to 17%. For dogs it's 7% and cats 3.5%. Meditating is a means for you to move beyond your analytical mind so that you can access your subconscious mind. That's crucial, since the subconscious is where all your bad habits and behaviors that you want to change reside. We cannot create a new future by holding on to the emotions of the past. Learning is forming new connections in the brain, and memory is sustaining those connections.